Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us on The Late Show. Tim Vince and myself. Good evening, Tim.
Good evening.
We will be doing the next 56 minutes or thereabouts with you by God's grace. And hopefully you will join us as well and take part in the programme by emails live@revelationtv.com and the usual text number which is on your screen. Being dyslexic, I'm not going to read it out because I'll get it the wrong way around. But listen, we all have our failings and our needs to improve. But who else can improve? Do we have a government that could help us a little bit better? You know, maybe not quite spend so much. We've got some interesting facts tonight, or Tim has. He's discovered something quite interesting, which I think we all should know about, because there are things that are happening which are costing us billions. Yeah, okay, it's us, the taxpayer, who are going to have to pay the bill, and especially our children and our grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren, so on and so on, because they're never, ever going to pay off the money that they've borrowed. But so we're looking at scripture that really sets the scene for tonight's title, and it's really from Matthew 25:23. Sounds like a year, doesn't it? Okay, but anyway, it says, his master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You are faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. So enter into the joy of your master." And who said that?
Well, it's the Lord said the whole thing because it's a parable. But and everyone's familiar with it, aren't they? You get rewarded if you're industrious and diligent with your master's the talents that he's given. Can I do a retake on it? This is unscripted, Howard.
Go on then.
If you sort of have we shown it on the screen, that verse?
Not yet.
Okay, it doesn't matter. We'll come to it. So if I'm going to. You can put it up. Let's put it up just to show that we are actually speaking from the Bible. But well done, good and faithful servant. I mean, this could be said to. We could paraphrase it for the UK government, couldn't we?
We could try.
Well, we could, with a bit of sarcasm.
Yeah.
Well done, good and faithful civil servants. You have been unfaithful over many things. You're going to be voted out.
Yes, and I've
got a much better take if I can try it. Can I risk it?
Go on.
I honestly haven't practiced this.
No, I know that because we just talked about it 2 minutes ago.
Go back to verse 19, we could say after a long time, in fact, after 13 years of Tory government.
Okay.
The voters of the civil servants returned to the ballot box and settled accounts with them.
You hope.
Yeah.
Wishful thinking.
And then the man who had received, the civil servant, who had received the 5 talents, spent 20.
Right. And so he had
Actually spent 40.
So he had a net of what, 35?
Yeah, but then he managed to hand back the 5, but he'd actually borrowed 45 or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the master, that is the public, the voter, the taxpayer.
Okay, I can see you're ad libitum
here. This is just a modern version. I'm not saying this is biblical.
Go
on. Because this is from the New International Version anyway.
Of Timothy Vince.
Basically, he said, look, you've entrusted me. He said to the electors, you've entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I've gained 50. But actually, I've borrowed 500.
Yeah, million.
You get the
billion.
point?
Yeah, go on.
I will actually put something
It will make sense in a minute, trust me. Hang in there.
Yeah, but then, you see, what happened was after the Lord said, come and share in your master's happiness, then he went to the civil servant who had received 1 talent.
And didn't do anything with it, did he?
Yeah, that's the local councils.
We'd like to find such a person because at least he didn't get us into billions of pounds of debt. We could do with one.
By the way, I said for the 13 years of the Conservative government, if I'd have said to the 13 years of the Blair-Brown government, because it was about 13 years, 97 to 2010, Liam Byrne was the one who said there's no money left.
Yeah, and a sarcastic note for the Conservatives to walk into government.
So this is what governments do. This is both Conservatives and Labour are cut from the same cloth. They're the so-called middle ground who think the electorate are stupid and they spend and overspend all our money. And we're going to go through, maybe if we've got time, to go through in detail some of what they spend.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd have a look at councils because it's in the news. It's kind of topical, isn't it, the Late Show?
But before you even go to those, because do stay tuned, because this is fascinating, honestly, it really is, and it'll blow your mind as just how much wastage and how much con there is over there and cover up and everything else. We're reading about how many councils, local councils or whatever, are actually going bust, and you can see why in a minute.
Exactly.
But Jesus did say,
I'm going to try and find what I sent you.
Yeah. Well, Jesus said that, that he was trying to say, look, for those of us within the church, really, those of us who are supposed to be followers of Christ, he was going away for a while. He was actually saying, right, I'm leaving this earth, actually. I think that's where the parable's leading. And those whom he trusted, his early disciples, were going to be given these different talents. There were measurements of financial coinage.
In the parable. It could be gifts that we have. What are we doing with our gifts as Christians?
That's true. But at that time, it was talent, which was a monetary sum or coin. The thing was that when he came back, the one who didn't do anything with it at all said, well, I knew you were a hard taskmaster, so I didn't do anything with it. I thought I just better not get into trouble. And he called him a wicked slave, really. He said, because you could at least put it in the bank.
Exactly. What's really interesting about the parable is both the 5 and the 2, the one who received 5 and the one who received 2, they doubled it, and they were equally commended.
Yes.
It's very, very interesting.
Say that again.
They were equally commended by the Lord because they had made progress. The Lord wasn't looking at, how much did you have at the beginning? Because we all have different amounts. We're all given different amounts as believers. We're all given different tasks as believers. But the important thing is what you did with it.
Right. So it's a calling. It could be a calling.
Because the one with 5, it's just numerically 5 times more than 1. I mean, that's a bit of maths for the Late Show.
Very good.
But it could have been the one with 5 buried the 5 and didn't do anything with it. The moral of the story, let's say, of the parable is not how much you start with, it's what you do with it.
What you finish
and
with.
it's your progress. It's a dynamic,
I mean, the guy who had the 1 could have actually ended up with 5,000.
Correct.
Okay, really, that's what you're saying. So, but it's up to what each one's mindset is and what our motive is, and do we trust our master? That's the thing. Because when he returns, he said he saw all of this, and he dealt with. He will be dealing with the church and those of us who stand on judgment.
By the way, there's a dishonesty in the one with 1 as well, because he sort of he falsely charged the master.
He did, didn't he?
And used that as an excuse
almost a
to
wicked
say,
man.
When he came to the election or the time of reckoning, which is what we're talking about, the government's come to a time of reckoning. We will come to a time of reckoning with the Lord. Everyone will be judged. We die once and there's the judgment. So it is relevant, I think.
Okay. Well, before we look at the list,
I won't go.
I'm going to reiterate what I said this morning, because I woke up and listened to some of the chat on the news, and those that are sort of following the COVID investigation, or whatever you want to call it, there are actually, I think there's 60 barristers that are actually booked full time and to actually do this investigation. 60 barristers, and they earn per week between 8,000 a week, and when it says if they're busy, which they will be, trust me, it's 13,000 a week. That's what we're paying for, and it looks like this investigation, or this whatever you want to call it, it's going to cost something like 200 million. Okay, it's already up to the 60 billion or whatever it is. Million. But this is outrageous.
It is.
So this is our taxpayers paying our tax payments, and those that slave, we are slaves. So are we the wicked ones?
Now, this is how stupid government is, okay? So they are investigating themselves almost.
Yes.
Now,
which is
Rwanda, the Rwanda deal, which we've had all week, we've been listening to all of the claptrap about this screwy deal.
This is incredible.
The government have given £3 million in grants earlier this year to groups that are campaigning against the Rwanda deal. They're campaigning against the government's deal, so the government give its money for opposition.
The government is actually It's the opposition?
It's not Her Majesty's opposition, but it's groups, charities that are in opposition to the Rwanda deal. The government are funding them. What kind of government is that? It's
my goodness.
It's our money.
It's like saying to someone who's going to shoot you, here's the gun and there's the bullet as well. Just point it in my direction. But I'm innocent.
Yeah. It is completely crazy, but it's also effectively our money.
Right.
So it's like us giving money to pay for the gun to shoot us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's happening.
It is crazy, but okay, let's start.
This is not a comedy show, by the way.
The Taxpayers Alliance.
I know.
Given all this information, and we're looking at it right now, live, okay?
Yeah.
Should we start from almost 100 councils failed?
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is a key point, right. Now, because why are we looking at the Taxpayers Alliance? Well, Howard and me, I think we said last night, when we met, it was at the home of a friend called Elias Fatal, who died last year, I think. Great dear friend, 23 years ago, I think, around that time. Anyway, one of the things that he was concerned about was the government funding the terrorists.
Right.
In the Palestinian terrorists. By hundreds of millions. And the EU, hundreds of millions. The UN, hundreds of millions. The US, hundreds of millions. It amounted to about $1 billion.
So as a Jew, Elias was interested in making sure that the money was going to the right people and not to the wrong causes.
Funding,
so he helped.
In the Palestinian media, for instance.
So he was part of the Taxpayers Alliance?
Well, he helped fund them.
Right.
And I knew the leaders of the, in those days, Matthew Elliott and others. And they obviously, they were delighted to have this funding. But what Elias particularly wanted to look at was the EU money that was being wasted. And it fits with this first story because the EU never audited. They never audited their accounts. In other words, it was never transparent where
the money went. Well, that was part of the reason
whose money it was.
I think that's part of the reason why a lot of us wanted to actually exit.
Correct.
And come out of a Brexit.
So, coming right back to your point, 100 councils in our country are not publishing their accounts.
Yeah, this is for the years 22
This is the last year, not published on time.
Now, they're supposed to, they've failed to actually publish their accounts. Why is the question?
Yeah.
What are they withholding? Well, we know many of them are starting to go bust, okay?
Yeah.
So, do you want to carry on from there?
Yeah. 100 councils failed by the September deadline. Only 1 in 10 have published audited accounts.
Okay.
So 100 haven't published any accounts, only 1 in 10 audited. Now, when we read some of the detail further down, how much money is being wasted, and then again, Birmingham, bankrupt. I'll try and find it while you're talking. But Croydon, unbelievable how many are on over £100,000 salaries.
Yeah.
So, no wonder they're not publishing the accounts.
There was a time, not so many years ago, particularly when Iceland didn't pay out, and some of the councils were actually putting money in there, thinking they were going to be getting 18%. I mean, it's like, come on, rape me, and they actually had put our money for the rates and everything else into the banks in Iceland, and they didn't get a penny back. So that was a big loss. But here we've got hundreds of iPads lost by London Ambulance, okay? Hundreds of iPads have been lost by the staff working for the ambulance.
It's shocking.
Okay, so, where did they go? Okay, that's just one thing, but these are all things that we're having to pay for through our rates or whatever you want to call it, okay? Council staff allowed to work from abroad. This is what, September
is part of the point.
2023.
On holiday, basically, indefinitely.
There's been a tenfold rise in the number of workers actually being able to go abroad.
And the locations include Spain, Italy, Brazil, Australia.
Yeah.
And that was the Daily Mail article. They published the findings. Hard-pressed households will be shocked by the number of public sector staff working from abroad.
Yeah, and it's saying, speaking to the Daily Mail, which published the findings, our chief executive, John O'Connell, said that these hard-pressed households will be shocked by the number of public sector staff, as you were saying, working abroad. Residents forking out record rates expect officials to be using the Office of and space that taxpayers are footing the bill for. So there are many offices that are empty. I mean, I'm trying to get hold of people in the planning, local planning here. I mean, it's really hard. I don't think there's anybody there. There's so many offices that you see are empty.
That's it. So there's another one here where half of the offices of all the councils are empty. And Howard, did I mention to you, we were talking about Ukrainians. When I went to the council offices, and they said we don't do in-person meetings. This is not during COVID.
Yeah.
And they gave me, so I'm going as a citizen who pays a lot of rates, you know, and all I really get is my rubbish collected if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And so I go to the council offices, and I was shocked by the lack of interest, number one. There was no service. They're supposed to be public servants. And then secondly, by the absolute lack of, what's the word? Their lack of cognizance as to what I was asking. Well, they were announcing, they had even published, they were doing this Homes for Ukraine scheme. So I came with a Ukrainian lady, and they literally...
Didn't know how to handle that?
Well, they
didn't have the information, or what?
They didn't. The best that they could offer is that I walk down, this is now at Thanet District Council, sorry about that, and I go down to the library. There might be someone down there to help me. So I went down to the library, and the chap in the library said it was a bit like That's Life. Then I went to the gas board, and then I went to the electricity board, and no one could help me. And I went down there, and in the end he said, well, we don't do any in-person meetings. And he gave me 5 numbers.
I'm surprised he didn't give you an AI, a robot. But hang on a second, let's go on to some of these staggering figures.
Yeah.
UK councils spent 700,000. Is that 700,000?
Yeah, because they're just picking up on specific cases. It's not saying 700,000 over 10 years.
But covering home internet costs for 2019 to 2023.
Yeah.
TPA investigation revealed this, and the highest spending council was North Herefordshire, which spent 136,000 during that period. And this is providing internet for their staff to work from home, right?
Let me scroll down, see if I can... Oh, this is the Bankrupt Council Rich List. Okay?
Okay, let me...
Bankrupt councils, there's a few... It was back in June, but we're talking about over the last year. Bankrupt councils in the UK have 45 staff members on 6-figure salaries. 45. So that's over 100 grand they're being paid. I wonder why they're going bankrupt.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know what you think. I mean, you're quite good with numbers.
Yeah,
but anyway, it's in the Daily Express. Local taxpayers have looked on in horror as their council bet everything on black, only to end up in the red. Town hall bosses are still receiving 6-figure salaries even before pensions and other perks are taken into account. Now, the point about it is, they are paying, there's another one, if you can find it, the golden, goodbyes. So when
we're going to get there.
But they're not owed. But they're not even obliged to give them these golden handshakes. They're giving them anyway.
Well, because they're in charge.
They're in charge. No one
can do what they like. There's no accountability, right?
And no accountability. Not publishing their accounts.
Hopefully that will change because of programs like this. Public sector pride. Cost the taxpayers more than 500,000 in 2023.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So they bought. That's basically just sponsoring events on behalf. Bear in mind that it is a political issue. Not everyone in the local borough or county council will be supporting those issues, and yet they're still sponsoring them on our behalf.
But this is chicken feed. We're going to get up to where people
we're going to get some big money. But it's still, for me, it's the principle.
Okay, NHS wastes millions on taxes just for empty buildings. Yes. 4 million on property taxes.
Just on property taxes for empty buildings.
How come that an organisation like the NHS is actually paying taxes?
There are 77 vacant properties in the NHS estates which are valued at 40 million by their property services. So they pay taxes on those buildings that they don't use. By the way, universities have been building like there's no tomorrow on the money they're stealing from from students, and that's quite. I just wanted to find, rather than just read them in, but I'll end up not finding them. But
I can read this next one if you want to go finding some of the big boys. Right, 100 million daily charges if ULEZ rolled out nationally. God gracious.
Yeah.
A national ULEZ levy would cost drivers almost 100 million a day if rolled out. This is what a TPA investigation revealed. The data from the DVLA revealed that 1.95 million petrol cars and 5.9 million diesel cars would be considered non-compliant under the existing ULEZ standards. Well, we know that the Mayor of London has brought in ULEZ and is making millions a day.
Yeah.
And, you know, how that's all going to end up, no one knows, God knows. But speaking to The Sun on Sunday, that's a good one, which published the findings, our chief executive, John O'Donnell, said, taxpayers are right to fear the expansion of low emission zones. Okay, watch this space. These costly levies make cash cows of low-paid drivers who can't afford to upgrade their vehicles. That's the problem. They brought this in, and they're making it almost impossible for people to either go to work or to actually people who are plumbers or electricians or people who need a little van but they can't afford to upgrade, or a little old lady who's got an old car that doesn't qualify under the ULEZ, and you know, she gets fined £13 a day or whatever it is, you know, and then there's the costs if you don't pay it within a certain amount of time. It is, what's happening to us? Well, we're letting all this take place right under our noses.
I've got another one.
Yeah.
So 138,000 just to attend a conference on the French Riviera for UK councils. So, and that was it was an event for to do a property event on the French Riviera. But the good thing is, some of them wouldn't have had to travel too far to get there.
Yeah.
Because they're all working over there on our behalf. It's unbelievable.
Okay, well, the Ministry of Defence recorded losses of more than 800 million in the latest financial year, according to an investigation by the Taxpayers Alliance. This includes payouts worth 2.5 million to victims of bullying, harassment, and discrimination.
By the way, mentioning the MOD, I think we've got, you know, some bigger figures, which we can put up on the screen. I think it's on this, yes, cancelled projects.
Oh my goodness.
Because I just searched for things that were over £1 billion.
Is that
so
3 billion?
3.991 billion on projects that were basically dispensed with. So that's just in since 2019, 2020. That is a lot of money. And then their cash losses, I don't know quite what that means, but they, in 1 year, that's 2.8 billion. It is not good.
And look at 29 billion.
That's the Public Accounts Committee on the test and trace. They found that this is public accounts now, saying that there's no clear evidence that they had any impact. So we had to stuff all those things up our nose, which really hurt if you had someone violently doing it. It was just basically taking the mickey, and it cost 29.5 billion. Okay, so that's why we read that scripture about not well done.
Yeah, faithful,
you unfaithful servant. NHS networking events, 26,000 hours of staff time taken up by events put on by the NHS staff networks in less than 12 months.
Yeah.
So that is phenomenal. Yeah. I'm on a waiting list, you know that, because of my shoulder.
I know, yes.
And we're going to get to that actually, because they keep sending out these letters.
Yeah.
You know, to say we're processing the inquiry.
I mean, we're laughing here, but it's sickening, really. 800,000 spent on painting Prime Ministerial Plane. This is money that was spent on painting the plane, with the Union Jack on it, and the Taxpayers Alliance again having a look at this. It means that a total of 1.7 million has been spent just painting 2 planes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carry on.
Yeah.
So this is what, going back to Whitehall rather than local councils, they have spent 182 million, this is what I was telling you earlier, on what they call golden goodbyes. So people that are actually already, they're not There's nothing contractual in giving them 182 million. It's just like the old boys club, giving them a golden handshake.
Yeah, golden handshake.
It's outrageous.
With taxpayers' money.
Yeah. As part of this, 389 former staff, they were not obliged contractually, they received packages worth over £100,000 after they're gone. With 66 receiving more than 150,000. These golden goodbyes will be a kick in the teeth for taxpayers. This is what, while households scrimp and save, Whitehall fat cats are trousering massive exit payments. I don't know whether anyone feels that this is good stewardship. I don't know.
No, not. Well, do let us know. Live at revelationtv.com.
Exactly.
We are live, I think.
Actually, we are getting a few emails in.
Okay. Bankrupt councils in the UK have 45 staff members on.
That.
Oh, yeah, six-figure numbers.
Who are getting over 100 grand.
Yeah.
Brecon Beacons spent 30 grand on just a rebrand. Outdated tech is costing billions. That's an interesting one. I don't know how they can calculate how many billion, but
let me have a look. Let me have a look at the details.
Have a look
okay. Outdated tech on Whitehall likely costing billions to maintain. Update and Taxpayers Alliance investigation again looking into this. This technology is highly vulnerable to cyber attack. And HMRC and the UK Atomic Energy Authority and the Department of Health and Social Care all use outdated technology. That's it, tell the world. Speaking to The Observer, which published the findings, John O'Connell, Chief Executive of Taxpayers Alliance, said these numbers are deeply troubling, showing that key parts of the government remain reliant on ancient IT systems despite being exposed to well-documented serious cyber vulnerabilities. That is true. I mean, at the moment, they can get into your, even into our personal details and everything on our own computers. It's incredible.
And this one is civil servants get a day off for attending a vegan event. So it's all groupthink type stuff where they have managed to go to a conference, and this was earlier in the year, a vegan conference. Taxpayers are fed up with civil servants wasting time on navel gazing. Whitehall's priorities could not be more out of step with those of households up and down the country. Ministers should remind bureaucrats that they are public servants, not activists.
Right. This next one, can you believe this? That we all heard enough about PPE and how, you know, we can't really say too much, but somebody's been making a lot of money who's well connected to government officials.
Yeah.
But how much is it costing, would you guess, to store the PPE today? How much today, per day, is it costing? In January, it's according to the new data uncovered by the Taxpayers Alliance, is 580,000 per day.
Yeah, crazy.
Just store this stuff.
London, more than 3 million handed out as bonuses to government officials in 2022.
Say that again, I missed that.
More than £3 million handed out to local government officials in London in 2022. So just in London, in 1 year, 3 million handed out in bonuses. So they're not private businesses that make a profit and then the workers get a share of that profit. They are public enterprises that are losing money and they're still getting bonuses. That's the point.
That is great. To get a bonus when you actually
for failing
to function properly.
That's why it's
I just
serious.
want to slap myself to see, am I still alive? I feel like death anyway, and I look like death at the moment, but maybe this is...
Howard, you're going down, mate.
Okay, that's what it is.
You're going down. Police spend 34 million on communications staff. That's quite a lot of money. Total of 753 full-time staff were employed as communications staff. I don't know quite what that means. And 3.1 million by Police Scotland. Someone will have to explain, someone will have to communicate what that means.
Okay,
that may mean explaining to a black pastor on the streets who's reading out the Bible that they're going to handcuff him, take away his Bible and put him in prison. And maybe that's the communication aspect of it.
Or people standing praying outside of an abortion clinic.
Yeah, silently.
Silently, yeah.
No, that may be, and maybe that needs to be communicated.
Is that thought police?
Yeah, but it needs communication, and you need to pay all that money so that you have the communication skills.
For praying that people don't believe is real and effective.
You've got it.
Okay, but how about this? The Scottish Government has provided more than £6.4 million grant funding to organisations that have lobbied against the UK Government's decision to block the Gender Recognition Reform Bill. So
that's key.
Where do they
Tony Blair set up, and this is, I know people have different views, because if you're passionate and patriotic in Scotland, you'll want to support a Scottish Government. But when I look at it as overall, what we've done is we've set up with the Welsh governments at the Senedd and the Scottish Government at Holyrood, you've set up divisions in our country which are very expensive. And you know, do you think of all the money that's spent on the disputes between the regions?
Okay, let's go. The taxpayers fork out 1.5 million on failed Sudan foreign aid project. Okay, he goes on. Cornwall Council's 4.4 million redundancy bill for what? For staff redundancies.
Yeah, well, that's just mismanagement, isn't it? That's Cornwall. That's a lot of money, isn't it?
And the Northern Irish Council's £1 million bill for golden goodbyes. Also, the cost of the empty building for the state, whatever it's called, that doesn't exist anymore in Northern Ireland. I mean, they haven't got... What's that place called?
Well, they don't even... The Stormont.
Stormont.
Yeah, they're not even there.
It's empty building. I mean, that can't be left without heating or something, because they would all petrify, wouldn't it?
And now they're talking about London's council's golden goodbyes. That's 14 million. It adds up. I've got another detailed type out. There were actually, I had pages and pages, but these ones caught my eye. Yeah. I don't know, the Department of Justice.
We're talking billions
again projects,
here,
so that's just million. But yeah, fraud in the 2 years following the beginning of the pandemic, 14.4 billion. Well,
is the handouts?
That's Rishi.
Rishi saying...
Well, I think it was the bounce back loans, and you know, people could literally press the button and think of a number.
Well, yeah, no, it wasn't so much that.
You could say anything. It's self-satisfying.
But the foolishness, I believe, was something to do with the fact you could just register a limited company there and then get 50 grand. Okay, there was 50,000.
Worse, you could lie about the turnover, and then it was something like a quarter of the turnover you could have as a bounce back loan on a company that's fictitious.
Yeah, and they handed out
a lot of money.
But why can't they get this back? Because they should bring them to book.
Because they're international criminals that have done it. They've left it open for anyone, and any stupid bank. Banks had no responsibility. It was guaranteed by the government.
Of course it was.
So the bank don't care. They're going to get their money anyway. So it's a combination of criminality, I would say, stupidity. Not only the mafia, but also the banks complicit, which of course they take the mafia's money.
They should have made restrictions like your company must have been going for like 5 years, 10 years.
It's basic.
Where's your record, your tax bottom line, you know?
It's basic. So could we just have a look on those typed out, because we only got to the 14.4 billion. Yeah. 14.9, 14.4. So the unused and unusable PPE.
Yeah.
So Baroness Moyne, I think her name is, she's in the House of Lords. She has now admitted that her husband, they knew about all of this. I can't remember, it was a lot of money, maybe nearly $1 billion. But this is 14.9 billion.
Prematurely cancelled PPE contracts. I believe it was because they were inferior products, right? But because they were trying to grab as much as they could, I mean, the motive was right. We've got to get this PPE because we've got to equip our NHS staff, doctors and nurses, so that they don't contract the disease themselves, or up to the nines with the PPE. But I mean, but it was open to being abused again. But the cost was how many billion again?
Put it up on the screen again. If we can. I'm sorry, I'm looking a bit tired. I'm tired of how much money's been lost. 14.9 billion. And then the other one, which is absolutely true, Rishi Sunak did not insure. He wasted 11 billion because he didn't insure against, the rise in interest rates. And that was in The Guardian a while ago. The National Institute of Economic and Social Research said the losses were the result of the Chancellor's failure to insure against interest rate rises on 900 billion of reserves. That reminds me of Gordon Brown selling off our gold reserves, then the gold price went up. Yeah. We lost billions. So we've got a load of nincompoops who are backroom boys who don't understand the real world. So therefore, 9 billion, 10 billion, 14 billion, 100 billion, 3 trillion. I don't know what our national debt is now. They're just numbers.
Could you look that up for us, Mr.
What the national debt is?
Yeah.
It's
and because
just quadruple.
All of us are facing higher mortgage rates because of the Bank of England's put up the rate. But it's also detrimental to us as taxpayers because the government has borrowed money to actually fund all these nefarious things, I can call them that.
Yeah.
But the cost at the end of the day is rising and rising and rising because of the rate rise in the Bank of England.
You've said it exactly what they said. The Bank of England created 895 billion of money through the QE programme, quantitative easing, printing money. Most of which was used to buy government bonds from pension funds and other investors. And those, you'd have to draw a graph, but basically they're buying bonds that are going down in value. You can't make it up. We've got quite a few emails and texts.
Okay, let me just read this one. Chesterfield Council had the highest bonus bill in 2022 of any council in the country. And it was saying the bonuses were paid to staff and it was average bonus was worth 18,000.
I've got the national debt figure now. So I was right, it's nearly 3 trillion. It's unbelievable. It was sort of 1.8 trillion before COVID, I think. But anyway, it's 2.599 thousand.
What's the interest on that?
Well, that is the problem. The interest is more, I think it's more than the annual budget of the NHS. It's something mental, or more than the annual budget for defence. So just think, why are we not able to equip our forces and Ukraine and what we've given to Israel? We don't have enough. We're paying more on interest. Yeah. Even though the interest has gone down a little, today it was held.
Yeah.
Because we're a very current programme. So we talk about today's news. They held the interest rates at 5.25%. But that is still a lot of money because it was 0.1 at one point.
Well, I think our mortgage was 900 a month. It's now going up to 3,000 a month.
Yeah.
So we're trying to sell our home now.
I've got the same.
So
I haven't got the same level of borrowing, but mine has gone up significantly.
I mean, your generation, yours, and then your children's generation, and my kids are going to have to pay this bill forevermore. How are they ever going to get out of debt? There has to be a reset button, surely. Cancel all debts.
Yeah, maybe. We've had to recover from the Second World War, but we've always had a bit of debt following that. But I think Nigel Lawson or Geoffrey Howe was paying it off amazingly. So we had a good clear down in the 1980s, but ever since then it's just gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Sad, isn't it?
Okay.
Here we are.
Let's read some emails,
Shall I have
Can you believe all this stuff?
I can't believe what the government say anymore. I think when
but they seem so blasé about it.
Yeah.
They're all drinking away the special bar that they've got over there and getting...
Yeah, there was one other in here. Yeah, was the civil servants, the way they live the life of Riley and they go to these corporate events and conferences. It was in their nature to have Downing Street parties. It was all pinned on Boris, as the chump who allowed it all to happen.
It was always happening.
Martin, whatever his name is, who wrote that email, bring your bottles.
Or suitcase.
Yeah, and they did. And so it's the civil servants who are unfaithful servants. And that, for me, is a key thing that has to be sorted out. And of course, we probably all know someone, in the family or friends who is in the civil service.
Rob was getting angry with the civil
servants. Oh, they got him out. And they just say, it's bullying.
He's bullying, yeah. And they got him out. He probably meant well. He probably told them
And they're
what
not snowflakes, by the way. They are very clever people. They know how to selectively leak and destroy character assassination. That's what they do.
Yeah.
So sorry to say, I don't know why I'm looking at my phone.
Let's read some more emails.
Okay, that's why I'm looking at my phone. I was looking for emails.
Yeah.
They're on the iPad. Okay, someone's just written the NIV is the never inspired version. I know, but actually, I wasn't doing too much damage by paraphrasing it. And Alwyn just says, one day we'll have a perfect government when Jesus comes back to set up his kingdom. Even so, come Lord Jesus. I was speaking to someone today who was speaking to a Liberal member of the Church of England who didn't believe the Lord was coming back.
No, he didn't believe in the scriptures.
No, he just believed that the Lord was everywhere. Why does he need to come back?
Airy-fairy.
So this is out there in our own Church of England.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like
don't know their
David
Bible, that's
Jenkins, who was the Bishop of Durham. They thought, how terrible, he doesn't believe in the resurrection. He says it's a conjuring trick with bones. Let's try and find out from the bishops.
Yeah.
And 2/3 agreed.
Yeah, and listening to a chat show, somebody rang in who's part of the clergy, didn't believe that Jesus turned the water into wine. Oh, my goodness. I mean, nothing. They don't believe anything.
And if you don't
Why are they in the church, for crying out loud?
It's not a matter, do you believe everything? It's if you actually don't believe just even one element, how can you be any credibility for any of it?
Yeah.
It's just
this is why,
the whole lot.
as I've said many times before, it's like a big jigsaw puzzle when you're reading the scriptures, and you've got to be able to find and see the big picture, but it's not going to happen until you've read entirely and studied the scripture, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
It just needs your attention, not listening and following whims and fairy tales and stuff like that, but actually look at the parchments there has been more evidence about Jesus actually being a historical person, et cetera, than any other human.
And the Bible itself, the way, however many authors, is it 39 something, and how it all hangs together, and it's written over thousands of years. It is an amazing, aside
all the
from
genealogies, everything, every jot and tittle is there for us.
Phenomenal. So
Saint
Woody, if that is your name.
Saint Woody.
All government councils and rulers are of earth and therefore flawed, but when the true government returns, what a difference there will be. Come, Lord Jesus, similar to the other one. Great stuff, says Deb. Mighty men of God, God bless. No, God, full stop, God bless. Martin Lewis, something, Money Show. Oh, God bless Martin Lewis on the Money Show. Yeah. Perhaps you can get him on the show.
Yeah.
He has the same passion as you regarding financial scams.
He is good, actually.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure that I might try and decipher that one later. Let everyone submit, this is from anonymous texter, let everyone submit to the governing authority, since there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are instituted by God. Yeah. So then, the one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and those who oppose it will bring judgment on themselves. Yeah. That's true. I'll just add a little caveat.
Is that Romans?
That we are the masters. So if you saw the way I read that Matthew passage, the voters in a parliamentary democracy are supposed to be the ones in charge. That's why it's so chaotic. That is Romans 13.
It is Romans 13.
Yeah.
So we are obliged, but what it does say is pray for those in leadership. Correct. In that sense. Yeah. But when you have a corrupt government and, they are just without any sort of common sense, how can you go along with that?
I think...
They bear the sword, by the way, hang on a sec, for nothing. But they took the sword away. They did away with the death penalty, and yet God said it was there so that it would be a deterrent. And so when our governments have taken away the things, and they take away the word of God, and they water it all down, how can you have respect?
Because it wasn't just a deterrent. He said, he who takes one man's life, his life should be taken. So it was actually a judicial ruling.
What have we done? We've told...
We've thrown it.
And our prisons are full. Wonder why?
Yeah, I had another thought, I've lost it. This is from Duncan in Scotland. We are told in the Bible to go forth and multiply. I believe that this applies to everything we do. We were always taught to live within our means and to work hard. I've followed this principle and found that it works well, as I've never had to borrow and have been able to help those less fortunate than me with money left over. What shouldn't be a surprise if we read the scriptures is that God is very generous and will give us much more in return. Why give money to bankers and money lenders, as that makes us slaves?
Yeah. Do you know, I was around about 32 years of age, and I was working in the city in the financial world. I didn't stay there long because I didn't like it because of what I saw. It's from an ethical point of view, so I got out. But I started to analyze what I was doing in life, in the sense that I could see that when we get into debt, we become a slave to the system and we're locked in. And so I decided then to get out of debt, not borrow money, and not, put cars and everything on finance and everything else, because all of that forces you to comply and be a slave to the system.
That's right.
You become a taxpayer, which is quite right, but you are locked in. They've got you, they're trapped. And I decided I've got to free myself from that. So, and get yourself into being able to meet your needs and stay within your budgets. And Leslie and I have always tried to do that as well, even when we've been almost broke, really stretched. But we haven't got that same mindset in our government leaders, but they seem to be wanting to get us into more debt and
more debt. By the way, on this issue of those in authority, the British system is the closest you could get to the biblical model, which is that the sovereign is under God, and that's taken generations to build. And the Queen was. People realised it when the Queen died, that she was God's servant. Yeah. They tried to say she's a servant of the people. No, she felt that it was a service to God. Now, the most interesting thing is that when the ministers, cabinet office and others, cabinet ministers and others take the oath, they take an oath to the Queen, the sovereign, but it is also to God. So they're under God. Yeah. And then the local councils are supposed to be, similarly, they're supposed to have prayers, believe it or not. There is a structure of accountability to God, and then we have this parliamentary democracy that sort of wraps it around. But
don't they take the oath as well?
They do.
Yeah, but what they do? How many of them actually sincere about that?
They don't. They don't. It's absolutely
using the Bible, and yet they don't believe in the Bible.
It's really bad. But there was a time when people, ministers, every one of them would, it'd be a very awesome thing to swear on the Bible. I don't believe in swearing on the Bible personally. I think we should
not swear by heaven or earth or anything according to.
So people say, "I'll swear on my mum's grave" and all of that nonsense. Yeah. I think we can affirm.
Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. I think that's the context of what Jesus was saying,
I've actually have been in a magistrate's court when I was much younger. I clocked up my points on my licence.
Oh, right.
A long time ago.
Yeah. Last week.
Got a clean licence now. No, it was a long time ago. Anyway, and it was whatever it is. It's a long story. Each one has got a story of its own. But anyway, I went in front of the magistrates, and Dad said, "You can say," because my dad came in with me. Yeah. It didn't help. Yeah. But, he said, well, "You can say, for my own beliefs, I can't swear. You affirm."
Right, affirm. Right, that's a good point. Yeah.
I thought that was quite a wise thing. We're chatting away, and I'm not reading the emails.
Go on.
Next one, it's daylight robbery when no one is held to account on how public council money is spent. Sounds like it's full of Freemasons, Mr. Jesus. There is an element of, secrecy, this lack of transparency. Anything that's secret is suspicious in my book. Everything should be transparent when it's in the public realm.
And why hasn't the EU ever done their accounts?
Well, I was pretty hot on this up to a few years ago. They may have suddenly, after we left Brexit, they may have shown their books. But why not? Because there's 10,000 at the count that I did a few years ago who were paid 200,000 euros. So that's bureaucrats who are paid so much money they don't want public scrutiny. That alone, they have their own private shopping mall just for the bureaucrats, not for plebs like you and me who pay or used to pay for the EU. So there's all sorts of jiggery-pokery, not least the money that they give to the terrorists. And Chris Patten said at the time when the Taxpayers Alliance were probing the EU all those years ago, Chris Patten, who is the EU Commissioner, said, well, we need an investigation like a hole in the head. That's verbatim what he said. In other words, how could he even say such a thing?
Was he worried about himself?
Yeah, he was brushing it away and saying, we need an investigation. Well, he was part of the collective European Commission as a UK commissioner, but yeah, he was basically doing what politicians do. They're just winning the day, the media, story of the day, and brushing it over. And that's what he said. We need an investigation like a hole in the head. Ha ha. Dave said, you sure know how to depress listeners with all your figures. Well, have you ever watched Howard before on Revelation TV? It's totally out of character. Jeremiah cried out, why do the wicked prosper, God? Why do the wicked prosper? They will be butting. The goats will be butting.
Yeah.
And that's what Deb is saying. Don't vote, don't watch the news, just check it on my iPhone. I read the Bible, that's more important, says Cynthia. No, the Lord said in his Olivet discourse, watch and pray. And I think that this is part of what we're doing. And you need to, the problem today is you can be watching and you're being given so much disinformation, misinformation and guff. It is, you can be watching and see nothing. Yeah.
But the bottom line is what it is costing us as individuals is enormous.
Yeah.
And it's not frightening because we know what the end result's going to be. The Lord will return, and as promised, and he will reign with in righteousness. And the judgment day is coming when all these people that have abused the system in one way or another will have to give an account. And God hasn't missed anything. He doesn't miss anything. It's all in the book, the book of life as well.
So everything recorded, everything recorded. Norma writes, some police officers have been working abroad for years. One I saw who was interviewed lives in New Zealand. It was not April the 1st. This was before COVID.
Sorry.
No, it's
April
true.
Fool's Day.
I note, this is from Asher, I note that less than 1% of Syrian refugees were Christian. Also, very few from Afghanistan either came to the UK, but were all, I think, Islamists who got approval. Finally, I brought a Pakistani Christian to church with me who came over when Islamists burned down all the homes on the Jaranwala in Pakistan. To finish, Asher now is in Cumbernauld, just outside Glasgow in Scotland. I won't show the photo, Asher, but it looks like a great photo with a Pakistani Christian. So well done for helping them. It's a good picture, that one. But I don't want to show it because you never know with algorithms, it could cause trouble for
and also,
family.
the data protection.
I vote we join Howard Conda and Tim Vince in the Revelation government. Well, Howard's going to get the 10 cities, I know that.
Don't know about that.
Enter thou into the joy of the Lord.
The Lord does say that, those faithful servants will be in charge of different cities and things like that in the new heaven, new earth. But, we've got a long way to go. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things, and I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the day of your Lord. It says it all. So I obviously was being a bit sarcastic and reinterpreting it. Was I? No, I think... No, we both
It was the New International Version, but I promise you I was...
I think if we don't laugh about it, we cry.
And the Lord, by the way, it's in the spirit of the Lord's parables. He said, if a father, what father would give his son a stone if he asked for bread?
A fish.
And the Lord was used a lot of humour, so I think he will forgive us for saying
Yeah.
This is just anonymous. Actually, not anonymous. It's from Yeshua, the other Yeshua.
Yeah.
Well, the email Yeshua. Abandon abortion, invest in homelessness, especially that of our former forces. A lot of veterans who are on the streets.
I know.
Stop LGBT indoctrination, invest in tackling mental health, cut back on a mass migration and invest in new homes and jobs. So he's wanting to be in your government, Howard.
Right.
The Revelation government. I think I've gone through them all, which is nice.
Yeah.
And we're right
Well
at the end
done.
of the show.
We have, yes.
We didn't go through all for Dave's
No,
sake.
because it would go on and on and on. But the thing is, it just shows you the amount of money that is wasted, and it's just going to be something which our children, our children's children, if the Lord tarries, will be having to face forevermore. I can't see it ever coming down with the state of the economies. And we actually look like we're in a recession. They like to, they showed you the graph yesterday of where we could have been in recovering from COVID, but we're really coming under that. We're faltering a bit, 0, -3 or something. Is it?
By the way, a one-liner is speak truth to power. Respect those who are in authority, but speak truth to power. And that's all we're trying to do.
Yeah. What would John the Baptist do?
With the facts. What John the Baptist, he would say, may I decrease and may you increase. And I've been saying that ever since I joined Rev TV.
Yeah, but would he say it to Herod?
That's right. That's the key, good point. He didn't say that to Herod. He absolutely condemned what he was doing.
Okay. Stay tuned to Revelation TV for more information, because, you never know how we can help.